video, I'm going to talk about the difference between prime numbers and composite numbers. So, just a reminder of some words I might be saying. Multiples, that's the product of a known number and a whole number. So again, if I wanted to find multiples of, let's say, 5, I would then start multiplying 5 by 1, and then by 2, and then by 3, and then by 4. And 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, and 5 times 4 is 20. So the 5, 10, 15, 20, those are what we would call multiples of 5. For factors, factors are the numbers or variables that multiply together to give a product. Remember the product being the answer to a multiplication statement. So if I had something like 2 times 3 is 6, the 2 and the 3 are factors, right? The 2 and the 3 are factors because they are the things multiplying together to give us our product of 6. So what are prime numbers? Prime numbers are numbers that can only be divided by 1 and the number itself. And another way of saying that would be that the factors of that number are only 1 and the number itself. So prime numbers really have only 2 factors, 1 and the given number. So let's look at a number like 5, okay? With 5, remember when we were looking to find factors of a number, we started out by dividing by 1. So 5 divided by 1, we know that's going to give us 5, and that's good because we now have these factors. 1 times 5 equals 5. 1 times 5, those are the factors. So we know we have factors of 1 and 5. Now we're going to see if there are other factors. Remember, we want to find whole numbers only. So if we get a decimal answer in our calculator when we divide, it doesn't work. 5 divided by 2 gives me 2.5. Okay, so I mean it's not a terrible number, but it's still a decimal. So is 2 a factor? No, it's not. We would cross that one out. Then we're going to try dividing by 3. 5 divided by 3 equals, that's 1.6, and those 6's keep going forever and ever and ever. So again, it's not a whole number, so 3 is not a factor. We can cross that one out. Let's try 4. 5 divided by 4. This one, it's a nice decimal, 1.25, but it's still a decimal. So 4 is not a factor. And then the next number we would try is back to 5 itself. That's the number itself again. And so we find, well, 5 is a factor and 1 is a factor, but we already did those. The factors for 5 are only 1 and 5. This number has only 2 factors, 1 and the number itself. Those are the only factors. That means that this number is what we would call prime. Okay. Now it's important to note, I have it down here in the bottom, 0 and 1 are not prime numbers. They're also not composite numbers. They're just 0 and 1. They don't have a special name. Okay. So 0 and 1 don't count, but this works for all of our other numbers. So let's look at composite numbers then. If prime numbers are only going to have 2 factors, composite numbers are just numbers that have more than 2 factors. So that means we can divide by more things than just 1 and itself. Let's try the number 6. So I know I can go 6 divided by 1 equals 6. We always start with 1, and so I know I can go 1 times 6 is 6. So 1 and 6 are factors. Let's see if there's something more than just those numbers. All right, let's go now 6 divided by, the next number would be 2. Well, 6 divided by 2 splits nicely into 3. So that means 2 and 3 are also factors of 6. And when I look at my next one, 6 divided by 3, oh wait, I know it's going to be 2 because we've already got 3. Since we've hit the same number again, we can stop. We're done. And let's look at all our factors of 6. Our factors of 6, we've got 1 and 6, but we also have 2 and 3. And now there are 1, 2, 3, 4 factors of 6. That's more than 2 factors. That means that 6 is what we call a composite number Because there are more factors than just 1 and 6. There are other factors aside from just 1 and the original number. That makes it a composite number. So you're often going to be asked, well, is the number prime or composite? Well, every number, when I look at these three, every number, I know I can at least go 1 times itself. So I can go 1 times 15. I can go 1 times 23. I can go 1 times 48. I know those work. I need to figure out, is there something else other than 1 and that number itself? So let's try it. Let's try 15 divided by 2. That would be our next one. 15 divided by 2, it gives us 7.5. Well, not a terrible number, but 2 is not a factor because I got a decimal. Let's try the next one. Let's try 15 divided by 3. 15 divided by 3, well, that one equals 5. Hey, that's nice. That means 3 is a factor and 5 is a factor. Another way I could write 15 is I could write it as 3 times 5. And because there's another way I can get 15 aside from just 1 times 15, that means that 15 is composite. That's all I have to do. Now, do I have to find all the other ones? No. I just wanted to show that it was composite or prime. Okay, let's move to 23. I'm going to try 23. I know I can divide by 1. Let's go divide by 2. When we do that, we get 11.5. Not a terrible decimal number, but it's still a decimal. So 2 is not a factor. Let's go 23 divided by 3. 23 divided by 3 is going to give us 7.6, and those 6's keep repeating forever on the calculator. Because we get a decimal, 3 is not a factor. We'll try 4 now. 23 divided by 4. 23 divided by 4 is going to give us, that one is 5.75. Again, it's not an ugly decimal number, but it's still a decimal number. So 4 is not a factor. Then I'm going to go 23 divided by 5. And 23 divided by 5 gives me 4.8. And again, not an ugly decimal number. Sorry, not 4.8. 4.6. I like to be accurate. Sorry. But that, again, is a decimal number. 5 is not a factor. Now, I could keep going, and I could try dividing by 6, and then dividing by 7, and then dividing by 8. But you know what? I divided by 4, and it didn't work. And I divided by 5, and it didn't work. And when I divided by 5, I got 4 point something. And when I divided by 4, I got 5 point something. So now my answers here are starting to be in between the numbers I've already tried dividing by. That means nothing is going to work. I can divide by 6, but I'm going to get something probably between 3 and 4. I'm going to get something between all these other numbers, and I can't get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 because I've already tried dividing by them, and they didn't work. So any number that I try after 5 is not going to work. 6, 7, 8, 9, none of them are going to work. If you don't believe me, try it on a calculator at home. We're going to call 23 a prime number. Something else that's a nice little hint for you, if you try dividing by 2 and it doesn't work, 4 is not going to work. Neither is 6. Neither is 8. Neither is 10. Neither is 12. Because those numbers are all even numbers. And if we can't divide by 2, we can't divide by any even number. So I actually could have even skipped this one. Just a little hint for you. All right, the next number we have is 48. Let's try 48. We know we can divide by 1. Let's try 48 divided by 2. 48 divided by 2 gives me, oh, that's nice, that's 24. That means that 2 is a factor, and I can write 48 as 2 times 24. Now, there are also lots of other factors of 48, but the question isn't find all the factors. The question is the number prime or composite? Well, 48 is composite because I can write it as another multiplication statement aside from just 1 times 48. So that's what we're doing with prime and composite. Now, some cheats and things to keep in mind. If you're asked if a number is prime or composite, check a couple of things. Does the number end in 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0? If it does, then the number is then 2 is a factor of that number, and your number is composite. So for example, when I looked at 48, 48 ended in an 8. That means I know I can divide it by 2. And since I know I can divide it by 2, it's a composite number. I can also add the digits of the number together. And is that number a multiple of 3? If the answer is yes, then 3 is a factor. So what do I mean by that? Okay, let's look at this. We'll say 27. Is 27 composite? Well, I'm going to look at those numbers, 7 and 2. I'm going to add them together. 7 plus 2 is 9. Oh, okay. 9 just so happens to be a multiple of 3 because I can go 3 times 3 to get 9. That means this number is going to be composite because I can divide it by 3. That's my test to see if I can divide a number by 3, is I just add the 2 digits together. And that would work with any number. It doesn't matter how big it is. So I could do something like, we'll say 96. 96, if I go 9 plus 6, that's 15. 15 is a multiple of 3 because I can write 15 as 3 times 5. So that means 96 can be divided by 3. It would also be composite. Another quick one you can do is, does the number end in 5? So our example we had earlier, 15. Yeah, I can divide by 5 because it ends in a 5. So this one I know already is composite. So there's some quick tricks that you can use instead of just dividing by every single number to see, because sometimes that can be a pain in the butt and it takes a long time. So some quick things that you can check is the number even. If it is even, then 2 is a factor and it's composite. Add the digits of your number together. Is that addition that you get, is it a multiple of 3? If it is, your number is composite because it can be divided by 3. And then does your number end in a 5? Because if your number ends in a 5, you can divide by 5. 5 is a factor, meaning your number will be composite.